Greetings and welcome to Let's Talk About Books, baby, where we talk with your favorite LGBTQ plus author. I'm Anita Kelly, and my guest today is Rich Rubin. Hello, Rich.
Hi, how are you?
I am well. How are you doing?
Doing great, thanks.
Awesome. Rich, where are you hailing from today?
Today, I'm at my home in Sonoma County, California.
Oh, nice, nice. I bet you it's nice and warm.
It's fairly warm and as beautiful as ever. Sometimes I just can't believe as I'm driving around that I'm lucky enough to live somewhere so beautiful.
Oh, I'll bet. My nephew and his wife were just out there last week, believe it or not. He had a business gig to go to, and they ended up spending a couple days just, looking around, and they loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Great. Everybody does.
Yeah. I have not been there. I was in Napa Valley, but not Sonoma.
Sonoma is at least 1,000 times more beautiful than Napa.
Wow. That's pretty
and
impressive.
Our wine is better.
Of course
and
it is.
We have a major thing that Napa County does not have, which is a coastline.
Oh, you are so right. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Awesome.
And, even before I moved here, that was about 8 years ago, with all the traveling I've done as a travel writer, and I'm sure we'll talk about that, I always thought when I came back to the Sonoma County coast that it was one of, if not the most beautiful stretch of coastline in the world.
Well, that says a lot. That says a lot because you have traveled all over the world.
Yes.
So that is amazing. Wow. Well, I will have to check it out next time I'm on the other coast because I'm an East Coast girl.
I was an East Coast guy for years and years till I finally took the big leap and moved here.
Yeah. I don't think that I could ever do that. I love the East Coast so much. And I love the speed, the rate at which people move. And, it's just in my blood now. Well,
I think it was in my blood too. I'll never forget. I was in Rome and I was saying to myself, this is great. You've left New York for a little holiday. Look how you're slowing down and taking things easy. And at that very moment, this guy says to me, "Scusi, signore," and says in Italian, "Are you from New York?"
He knew.
So I guess it never leaves you totally.
How about it? I thought you were going to say something like, you push the Pope out of the way or something.
If only I'd had the opportunity, I might just have done it.
Oh, that's great. So that's one of those, you can take the boy out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the boy, right? And it's true
Exactly.
for New York as well.
Yep.
All right. Well, Rich, as much as I would love to keep talking about Sonoma, I want to talk about one of your newly published anthologies, which is called The Day Before It Rained.
Yes.
And it is a collection of short stories. Is that correct?
That's right.
Can you tell us about that collection?
Yes, it's, as we alluded to before, I wrote about travel and finally retired after 30 years of doing it.
Wow.
And had all of these short stories that I'd written over the years, and some more recent, some really quite old. And I finally decided, these aren't doing anybody any good sitting in a drawer until the day I die.
Yeah.
At which point my brothers will go through the drawer and keep a couple of them and throw the rest out.
Brothers are good for that.
Yes. I thought, why not take the leap and do it? And because they've been written over so many years, decades really, there's a really wide variety in the stories. I would say about half LGBTQ plus, a smaller amount heterosexual, and then there are quite a few stories that really don't have any sexuality or romance involved in them.
Wow, so that is quite a variety.
Yes.
Wow. And where did the title come from? How did you decide on that?
The title is also the title of one of the stories in the book. It's about this guy who's in Provincetown on vacation from New York and wondering what to do about this relationship he's in that he really deep down knows this isn't the guy for him and it's not going to work out. So his first day in Provincetown, he heads to the beach. And as I'm sure you've experienced, the minute he gets to the beach, it starts raining. So the story is set on the day after it rained, when it's a beautiful day and he's lying on the beach thinking about all these things and seeing all these happy gay and lesbian couples on the beach. And then he starts thinking about the things that happened the day before it rained, which was the day before he left on his trip.
Okay.
And thinking about the things that this so-called lover of his did or didn't do, and eventually realizing that he's got to take some steps and get on with his life.
Wow. Okay. So is that kind of autobiographical or no?
Actually, it's not really.
Okay. Right.
Like a lot of the stories in the book, many of which have varying degrees of autobiographical content, but the setting for it comes from a real experience. And the feelings are something I might have felt about a former love, but it never hooked up with that experience in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yep. And I'm sure everyone can relate to even being in Provincetown and running into some rain on the beach, you know?
Yes, definitely.
And everyone, I don't think I've ever come across anyone who has not been in a relationship that they got out of. Very few people meet someone, fall in love, and that's it. This is the person for them. It's
exactly. That's why the book is divided into several sections, each of which has 5 or 6 stories in it. And The Day Before It Rained, the title story of the book, is from the section called Starting Over.
Okay. What are the sections? Can you tell us?
The sections are, let me see if I can remember them all. There's portraits, which is very short little capsule views of an interesting life.
Okay.
There's People with People, that's all about relationships. There's Birthday Presents, which is various pieces I wrote for different friends on their birthday.
Oh.
There's one section that's all about it's called Foreign Strands. It's all about things that happen in foreign countries.
Okay.
And I know there are a couple I'm forgetting.
That is quite eclectic.
Yes. I think eclectic is like the middle name of this book.
Yeah. That's great. That is great. I love it. And I love it that so often, like when you read short stories in a collection, they might all be the same or have the same theme. And I love that these are all different for the most part, and you have them kind of divvied up by sections. That's really nice.
And then the other section is possibly my favorite. It's called The Way I See It.
Okay, what's that about?
Which is me just mouthing off about anything I want to.
Ah, that's awesome.
Those stories are really fun in that section.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I can't wait to read that. That is fantastic. I have not had the opportunity to look at your book yet. It's I have a lot on my to read list. Too much, in fact. So
Well, especially doing a podcast like this, you must be swamped with things to add to your to read list.
I do. Yes, I do. I always make a point to read at least one book from anyone that I interview. And I would love to be able to do it beforehand, but that's not always, the case for me.
Sure.
Yeah. So the title came from the story, and you had said that some of them, or the majority of them, were stories that you had written, in the distant past, and in the more recent past. And how did you decide which stories to update and which ones to keep as kind of like period pieces?
That's a really good question. And I think it came down to, is there something about the story that really is tied to the time period?
Yeah.
It's easy enough to update the movie they're watching or the music they're listening to or something. But was there something about the story that really was set in that era and shouldn't be changed? For instance, one of my favorite stories in the book is called Harry and the Second Stonewall. And it's about this guy who's kind of closeted, sitting in a bar while outside they're preparing for a march of the queer nation.
Okay.
Which I don't know if you're old enough to remember that, but it was a movement in the early 90s.
Okay, I am old enough.
Okay, then, that time period, at least, even if you didn't participate with that particular group.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something about the playoff between his being closeted and in the beginning kind of poo-pooing the whole thing. Oh, in my day, we didn't use words like queer right out in public.
Okay, yeah.
And that kind of thing. And eventually he has a really touching and beautiful awakening because of this march. I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah.
But that's something where the entire dynamic would be different today.
Yeah.
So that one I left alone. There's another one called No Kids, No Pets, No Noise, which is about a woman who operates the switchboard in a college dorm and has an entire interior set of conflicts that, of course, the students know nothing about. And when I looked at that story, I was like, I don't even know if they have switchboards in college dorms anymore.
No, they
if you
do
want
not.
To call someone, you call their cell phone.
Yes. Yeah.
So I left that one alone. Others, as I said, if it's just a matter of changing a few of the externals, then I went ahead and did it and updated it.
Yeah. Wow. That is, I bet you that was kind of tedious work too, to go through.
The entire process it was exciting, but at the same time, you're right, it was totally tedious, because remember, when some of these stories were written, they were written on a piece of paper with a typewriter.
Ah, okay.
So the first step was scanning them.
Oh my.
Page by page by page, because I couldn't get to see the automatic feeder to work.
Oh no.
And then converting them from PDF to Word, which put about 15,000 errors into them.
Yes.
Luckily, my friend Lucy is an experienced proofreader and saved my life on that one.
Oh, that's good. Oh, that's a big help.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a lot of work. My word.
But it was totally worth it.
Yeah. 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 You must be really proud of the final product.
I'm really proud of it.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. That is really awesome. So you've been writing, as you said, for like 30 years or over 30 years about food and travel. Um,
Yes,
so have you ever considered writing like a gay novel that focuses on food or travel or both?
I've thought about it. It hasn't come about yet.
Mm-hmm.
That career as travel writer certainly appears in many of the stories of the collection.
Okay. That's
And my colleague Mark Chestnut, let me put in a plug for him,
okay.
who is a travel writer who has written for many of the same publications I have. It's not so much a novel as a memoir. I believe it's called Preparing for Departure,
Oh,
that is all about his life as a gay travel writer.
wow.
And other things, of course, his relationship with his mother, that kind of thing. But so he's covered that territory really beautifully.
Mm-hmm. And what's Mark's last name?
Chestnut.
Okay, great. That's nice.
But the travel writing, certainly many of the stories would not have been possible without the amount of traveling that I did.
Okay.
There's one, for instance, set in Tunisia. And as I said before, many of them draw on my travels for the setting, but aren't necessarily about things I directly experienced.
Okay.
This story is called Mirage, and it's all focused around a little boy who's on this trip with his parents, experiencing the phenomenon of a mirage, where they see this lake in the distance and then they look from a certain angle and the lake is no longer there. And his guide explains the concept of a mirage in the desert. And all of a sudden, this little boy is wondering, like, is anything in his life real? And if someone looks at him the wrong way, will he disappear?
Oh my.
It's a really sweet story.
Oh, it sounds it.
Others are set everywhere from Venice, which is the backdrop for this sort of campy murder mystery short story,
Awesome.
and Amsterdam, where certainly I never encountered some of the really kind of unpleasant things that the main character encounters.
Well, that's
But
good.
yeah. But certainly having traveled there so much gave me a good sense of the city to use as a setting for where all this stuff happened.
Okay, that's great. That's great that you have all of that to draw from. It really is. It's fabulous.
Well, and in my life as well as in my writing, I've always said, my friends have retirement plans and 401ks and everything, but I've been to Tahiti 3 times.
Nice. Nice.
So it was the greatest job in the world. It was time to finally retire from it. And I'm glad I did, but I'm so grateful for those years of travel.
Oh, that's wonderful. Not everyone can say that about their, career that they had, their job that
Yes.
they had, right? Oh, that's wonderful. And were you like a freelancer for different publications, or did you work for, like, I don't know, Condé Nast or something like that?
Yes, I was always freelance.
Okay. All right.
I mean, for a while, I held editorial titles that were, to tell you the truth, more title than reality. I wasn't making editorial decisions or anything,
Mm-hmm.
but I was travel editor of Genre magazine.
Okay.
I was food and wine editor of Passport magazine up until the day I retired,
Wow.
but always worked as a freelancer.
Yeah, that's great. That's great that you had that freedom, to do what you wanted too. That's
It
really
made the job so much nicer.
yeah, yeah. I'll bet. I'll bet. That's wonderful. So, you know, Rich, in your opinion, do you think it's important to have LGBTQ plus representation um, in works of fiction?
Oh, I think it's definitely important.
And
And I think that has increased to a great degree since I first wrote some of these stories.
yeah, yeah. The publishing world has really changed. Like
Yes.
in even the last 20 years, you know. Um, so what do you think makes that so important that we have that representation?
Well, I think even though on the whole things have gotten better for a young person growing up,
Mm-hmm.
LGBTQ plus, they're still, I don't think anybody would deny, far from ideal.
Yeah.
And I think mostly of younger people who have the chance to read about somebody like themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's so important. In the old days, such a huge percentage of LGBTQ plus literature ended with the person dying or meeting some other tragic consequences. And
Yes. Yeah.
the chance to read something positive, I think, is really important for people, whatever their sexuality. And I've got to say, some of my straight friends and relatives
Mm-hmm.
have enjoyed some of the gay stories in the book as much as any of my gay friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's important too, to know that, you know, the audience is not always necessarily LGBTQ plus. I think it's good for, you know, people who are outside of that group to read that and just kind of normalize life, you know?
Yes. I mean, we've been reading about them for long enough.
It's true. That's true. And most of us have been raised by them, so you know we've lived it.
Yes.
You know, but yeah, I agree. I think that, you know, even though we have come a long way, there's still like pockets of isolation where I think young people think I'm the only one. You know, I don't know anyone else like me, and when they discover LGBTQ plus literature, it's like a whole world opens up. You know, it's like
Exactly.
I'm not alone. I'm not a freak. I'm, you know, this is great and it's okay. Um, so yeah, it really has a powerful impact, I think, on
I agree.
yeah. So, you know, the publishing world, the literary world, right? The LGBTQ plus literary world has really changed over the past few decades. You know, how have you seen those changes? What have you seen happen?
I've seen that publishers don't have to have second thoughts about a piece of literature that's LGBTQ plus.
Yeah.
They consider it like they'd consider any other book.
Yeah.
That's been the main difference to me. There hasn't been this sort of, well, this is really good, but do we dare to take a chance with it?
Yeah.
I think, for instance, even not speaking on a book level, but in something like a poetry or short story contest, I don't think they would even give it a second thought to awarding the prize to a story or a poem with LGBTQ content in it.
Yeah. I think you're right. And I think in the past that definitely it definitely would have, you know, come into play. It would have been a variable that was important in choosing the winner, you know.
Well, and you were speaking about normalizing before. I think in the past, there are certain or were certain very forward-looking publishers that might have considered LGBTQ plus writing an asset for them to present.
Yeah.
But it was always part of the equation. Now I think it's less a part of the equation, and just the quality of the work is the most important thing. At least I'd like to believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Totally agree. I think about people like, I don't know if you're familiar with Amanda Kyle Williams.
No.
So she was a lesbian who was out, and she wrote mainstream fiction and had a lesbian character in her fiction. It was like crime thriller, books. And there was actually a whole series that she wrote that I loved, even before I didn't even know that she was a lesbian. And I was just like, this is so cool. This is great. And then, I came to discover that. And I guess, her publisher knew it. Everyone knew it. And it was a mainstream publishing house, which was so cool. And you could buy her, paperbacks in the grocery store, or at Target, which was great.
And even writers who were not LGBTQ plus. I'm a big mystery fan, and two that come to mind immediately are Robert B. Parker and Jonathan Kellerman.
Yeah.
Both of whom have had steady gay characters in their entire series of novels.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. And I wonder, like, I know Patricia Cornwall. So, I just think Kay Scarpetta should come out.
I agree.
That's her main character, and she's just I
was trying to think when you said that. I thought, but wait a minute, she's never identified Kay as lesbian, has she?
Never. No.
No. Even though everybody who reads it kind of figures it out.
She definitely is. So things have changed, and it's a good change, and I hope we keep going in that direction. It's scary times are upon us.
Yes.
But we'll see what happens here. So Rich, I have to ask you, what has been your most treasured accomplishment to date in your career, or even in your life?
Wow, my theater work has gotten some great reviews. This collection of short stories, A Day Before It Rained, has won 2 awards for Best Short Story Collection.
That is fabulous. Congratulations.
It's great. Thank you. And in both cases, it outright won the award for Best Short Story Collection and was one of 3 finalists in the LGBTQ plus category.
Nice.
Which was kind of exciting since only about half the book is LGBTQ plus.
Yes.
But anyway, they're a great thing to put on my resume and hopefully sell books.
Yeah.
But for my own personal sense of accomplishment, there's one thing that comes to mind, which is the background is I am the only non-accountant in the family. My mother and myself.
Oh my word, that is something. And so
my dad was an accountant and was still going into the office at age 89, literally up until the day he died.
Wow.
My brothers both followed him into the firm. They're both retired now. But so there was always that question, do they wish like I'd been smarter in math and I could have done the same thing? So speaking of traveling, I had spent a lot of time in Venice, as I mentioned, and I did a story that was a great selling story. I sold it to 3 or 4 different magazines and newspapers about the mask makers who make the masks for Carnival in Venice.
Oh, cool.
And I happened to be traveling with my parents in Venice on the way to some international accounting society function my dad had.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I'd really love then to meet my friend Sergio, who's one of these mask makers. So there's me and my parents, and we're walking across the Rialto Bridge towards Sergio's shop. And we walk up to the shop, and there's my story hanging in the window.
Oh,
and my parents looked at each other, and they looked at me. And what I saw in their faces was better than any 100 awards I could have won.
oh, I'm sure.
It was so beautiful.
That is wonderful. That's just amazing. It really is. It's like so heartwarming, and it is. You know, when you even as an adult, you want that approval, right, from your
Yes.
parents, and especially within your family of origin, with your brothers following in your dad's footsteps, and you going off on your own, drum beat.
Yes.
Yeah. That just probably meant so much to you.
It meant so much to me. And I remember also one time I said to my brother, what does our dad think about me doing this writing? Does he really care about it? Does he wish I was an accountant? And my brother said to me, you've got to be joking. Whenever a story of yours comes out, he's walking all over the office bragging about it and showing it off to people.
Oh, that's so cool.
That was another one of those moments.
Yes, I can hear it. My son, the writer.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so great. Oh.
And as far as proudest accomplishments in my life,
Mm-hmm.
that's come about recently, I think. There's a young man I'm very close to named Alex. Let me get rid of this phone for a minute.
Okay.
I met him when I was heading to Romania to do a story. He guided me around, and as I got to know Alex, I don't want to say too much about his personal things, but let's just say he had the worst upbringing you can possibly imagine.
Mm-hmm.
There's a story called In Celebration, which is for him in the birthday presents section.
Oh.
And when we found out that he and his girlfriend were expecting a baby, one of the first things he said was, I want you to be the godfather.
Oh.
And I grew up Jewish, where we don't really have godparents.
Sure, yeah.
But I said, whatever a godfather's supposed to do, I'll do it. And then he told me they want to name her Maureen after my mother.
Aw.
My mother would always say to me, she never met him, of course, but she would always say, so how's my Romanian son?
Oh, that is wonderful.
So this little girl, who's now about a year and a half, is very possibly the only Maureen in Romania.
Yes.
And she's feisty and speaks up for herself and takes no nonsense. And I swear to God, she's channeling my mother.
Good for her. That is
Yep.
great. Yes. Yes.
And I am so proud of her. I'm heading there next week to see her.
Oh, how sweet. How sweet.
Yeah.
How long has it been since you've seen her?
Since June. Her birthday is in the middle of June.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And here's something really fun. I went there for her 6-month birthday last December.
Mm-hmm.
And as we were celebrating her 6-month birthday, I realized her 6-month birthday was the day of my mother's birthday.
Really?
Yeah.
How about that?
So these two women are connected in some way that I can't even begin to fathom.
Yeah, they sure are. Wow. That's wild. That is
But
really
I'm
nice.
so proud of her, and I'm so proud when all my friends on Facebook say, "Oh my God, she's so amazing and so beautiful," and
Oh,
she's the greatest kid in the world, and nothing means more to me than that family at this point.
oh, that is really sweet. That is great. That it really is. I can't wait to hear more about her. And the next time you come on the show, which you're always welcome to come back, I want to hear,
I,
what's happening with Maureen.
I'd love to not only come back, but to keep you updated on her because the changes happened so fast. It's unbelievable.
Oh, they do when they're that young. They really do. Yep.
In my day,
Yeah.
I I just wasn't around many babies.
Okay. Yeah.
I had a nephew and three nieces, but I didn't live in the same city as them.
Mm-hmm.
And now it seems like not only straight people, but practically every gay or lesbian couple I know has a baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So all of a sudden, my life is full of babies.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Babies are just, I think they are just fabulous. They're just like incredible, and they keep you young, and they just make you happy.
They kind of simultaneously keep you young and wear you out.
That's true. Yeah. There's a reason we have babies when we're young, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's such a wonderful story. I'm so happy for you. That really
Thank you.
is. That really is. That is quite an accomplishment to be very proud of, really. That's so cool.
And I think before this coming June, I'm going to have to write a story for her.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yep. So we can expect another collection coming out.
Well, what I'm working about on now is something that also has been sitting there for a while. And I'm looking at it again, and it's going to be a period piece because so much of it is wrapped up in the period. It's this same character that I mentioned, this sort of campy murder mystery set in Venice,
Yeah.
um, is the lead character in this one. This lesbian woman who runs a box office in a New York theater, which I did for years and years, and you encounter the most unbelievable things and the most hilarious stories.
Oh, I'll bet.
And this is a murder mystery
Okay.
where the box office person, because she knows who was supposed to be sitting in which seat till it got switched and that kind of thing, as the clues to who the intended murder victim was.
Ah,
That
okay.
kind of thing. And it's the first thing I came up with because my New York customers were always saying, now I want seats in the center.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the title was the first thing I came up with, which is Dead Center.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
perfect. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. That is perfect. I can't wait. Is that going to be like a short story or a full length
No,
novel?
it's going to be a full length novel.
Oh, cool. Cool. And do you have a deadline for that, or is it just
No,
sometime?
just a self imposed one.
Okay.
I'm hoping it's not going to be any time in the next couple of weeks. The novel is basically written, but
Oh.
there's a massive amount of work to be done, and as there always is. My way I go about things is I write and write and write and write, and I don't worry about whether it sounds perfect or whether it's exactly right,
Mm-hmm.
because then I can spend the whole night obsessing over one word or one sentence.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
I just write, put in a bunch of asterisks if I can't figure out what I want to put in there.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm going back to it and filling all of that in.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. That's a great idea. That really is. It's a good rule of thumb to write by.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think so. Maybe other people do it different ways, but I remember my graduate writing advisor at the University of Washington always said to me, when I've mentioned this in like every interview I've done because it stuck with me for so long.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was kind of dumb at the time, but now I really appreciate it. He'd always say to me, Rich, there's only one rule. You're not a writer if you don't write.
Yeah, it's true. It's very
And I
true.
see so many people spending so much time being a writer or being an artist that they don't seem to actually get around to doing the thing.
Yes. Yes. Yep. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Yep. You're talking to one right now.
Well, maybe this will encourage you to get back on the stick like I should too.
There you go. Yep.
Because every time I sit around, well, I got things to do today. I'll work on Dead Center tomorrow. I hear this little voice in the back of my head, and it's David Wagoner saying, Rich, you're not a writer if you don't write.
Yes. Yes. That's going to be my new mantra.
Good.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
And here's another mantra that hopefully will help some of your listeners. It's a story I just remembered, actually inspired by you when you had sent me some of the questions, and one of them was about life experiences and things I'm proud of, etc. I suddenly flashed back to high school. And I was kind of bullied in high school, so I was pretty fearful whenever I was walking down the hallway if I would run into this certain crowd of people that loved to taunt me and jeer at me.
Oh, that's so sad.
And one time I'm walking towards the side of the hall like I always did, and Marlon Hoffman comes up to me. And I haven't heard from Marlon in years, though I hear that my younger brother is still in touch with him, and I would love for him to tell Marlon how much he changed my life, because Marlon comes over to me, and Marlon was like super good looking and played the lead in the school musical and was on top of the high school world.
Okay.
And why he would even approach a little scared nobody like me, I don't know. But Marlon comes up to me and he says, you know something? I've noticed something about you. And I'm like, oh my God, what's coming?
Yeah.
And he says, when you walk down the hall, you always walk way over on the side. And what I want you to do is walk down the middle of the hall like you own it.
Awesome.
And it kind of changed my life.
Nice. So you
Not
did
to
it?
be. I did it.
Great.
And it didn't stop them from making their taunts, but somehow, with that in mind from Marlon, I felt above it.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, Marlon was a gem.
He is a gem. And that's what I would encourage anyone listening to do, whether it's in your life or your job or anything that's important to you. Walk down the middle of the hall like you own it.
Yeah, that is great. Those are great words. Great words. Yes, I can see where that would make a huge difference in someone's world.
I mean, in addition to everything else, it was someone actually cares about my well-being.
Yes, absolutely. And Marlon, someone like Marlon, right, who was on top of the high school scene, right? One of the top
Exactly.
dogs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
wasn't just one of my fellow misfits.
Yeah. That makes a huge difference. But that's wonderful. And you remembered it to this day. That's so cool.
All these years later, yeah.
That's so cool. Wonderful. I love it. Thank you for sharing that story. That's,
Sure.
yeah, and I hope your brother tells Marlon too.
I want him to give Marlon the information for this podcast,
Oh, cool.
and with just like a hint of tune in it, especially at 6 minutes and 49 seconds into the podcast.
Right, right. Yeah. Yes. Oh, that's so cool. That's great. I hope he does. I hope he does. You know, people need to know what kind of impact they had on others. And it was probably for Marlon, it was no big deal, right? But for you,
Exactly.
it was huge.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. Oh, I got the chills right now.
So do I, just remembering it.
Oh, I'll bet. I'll bet. That's so cool. So Rich, where can our listeners get a copy of your book? Where do they go?
They can go to Amazon and just feed in Rich Rubin the Day Before It Rained, or they can go to my website, which is richrubinwriter.com.
richrubinwriter.com. Okay, folks.
Yeah.
So that's
and there on the front page of the website is a link to buy the book.
Awesome. Okay. And the book is The Day Before It Rained, which is a collection of short stories. And I can't wait to take a look at that.
I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it. Definitely let me know.
Oh, I will, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And Rich, thanks so much for being on the show. It was great to have you here. Do you have any parting words for our listeners? I mean, you already left them with a couple of great, words of wisdom, things to live by.
Those are my parting words, I think.
Okay.
And thank you so much for having me on. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, great. It was wonderful talking with you. And so, folks, I encourage you to get out and take a look at Rich's book, buy a copy. It's Rich Rubin, and the title of the book is The Day Before It Rained. That is all the time we have for today. I'm Anita Kelly, and thanks for joining Let's Talk About Books, baby. Until next time, may your journey be lighthearted, peace be plenty, and be safe, folks.